He's the Hobbit that might leave a pony's head in your bed if you're not good.
Yeah, right.
Before the Rings of Power, there were the Silmarils. Before Sauron, there was his master Morgoth. Before Aragorn and Arwen, there was Beren and Luthien. Join us as we explore Tolkien and all the ages of Middle-earth with your hosts from theonering.com, Jonathan Watson and Michael Grumbine.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to This Week in the Changes for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all we do.
That's all we do. We just love it. We live for these episodes.
I tell you,
this particular episode I've been looking forward to because they did one of my top 5 characters dirty. In fact, they did 2 of my top 5 characters dirty, Faramir and the guy we're going to talk about today, or one of them, Farmer Maggot.
Farmer Maggot.
Anyway.
Yeah. And just again, let me reiterate to the people who keep commenting about us hating these films. We don't hate the films. We're talking about all the changes and how we think it could have been better, but the films aren't bad by themselves. They're great movies, but they made changes to Lord of the Rings. So we can't help but analyze them and look at them and talk about them. So don't judge us so harshly. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But if you do want to judge us really harshly, you can become a sponsor and you can become a member of theonering.com at theonering.com/member. It's $4 if I can say it right. $4 a month. First month is free. Or you can give more like Harrison, Adam, Lynn, and Rich, and who keep the wheels turning. I was going to say the engine pumping, but that doesn't work well with Hobbits. So the wheels keep turning here. And you can go to theonering.com/Patreon, become a Patreon member. We've got a couple folks signed up there. Most everybody goes to theonering.com/member because who doesn't want to save a hard-earned dollar every day instead of giving it to Patreon? So you can go there. Yeah, exactly. So go to theonering.com/member, become a member, go to theonering.com/Patreon, become a member there, and you can join up and hammer us on the back end of these systems that you can't see. Or you can click the link at the top of the show notes to become a free member, a freeloader in our Discord chat and join us there and ask your questions and talk there too. You just won't get access to the super secret areas where we talk about the extended podcast, which we're going to be talking about who would have been some good actors to play Fatty Bolger, who's sadly and sorely missed in the films, and of course Farmer Maggot, as Michael said, who is also sadly and sorely missed in the films.
Yeah, he had a lame stand-in the films, which we're going to watch. But
yeah. I think I have some good alternatives that I think could have worked really well. Would have loved to have seen them.
I have one good alternative for
right.
Farmer Maggot.
Knowing us, it will probably be the same person.
Could be.
So yeah, go to theonering.com/member, become a member, join us there, and let's jump right into it. Let's get right into it and look at the Godfather of the Shire.
There's no wagons around here. They're all up in Hobbit.
Rain may fall and wind may blow, but there still be many miles to go.
There's not a whole lot there. They've just gone, right? For the most part, these characters are just gone. And so all we see in the beginning is we see this guy right here, this scared little hobbit who said, there are no Baggins here. They're off in the Shire. What did he say? The Shire or Hobbiton? Now let's listen again.
There's no Baggins around here. They're all up in Hobbit.
He says they're off in Hobbiton that way. Sorry.
Yes, so that clearly is supposed to be Farmer Maggot, or at least the closest facsimile in the movie, because he is the one that says the line, you had better go back west to Hobbiton. You're in the wrong part of the Shire. You had better go back west to Hobbiton, to the Nazgul. But as we're going to point out, he says something. His character is utterly different in the books. So this has got to be Farmer Maggot, and they did him dirty because Farmer Maggot is an awesome character. A character is only on pages for a few. Is only on a few pages, and then we don't see him again. But he is the most prolific family man of the Lord of the Rings because and so I'm partial to that. He has at least 5 children, but it is implied that he has more because they eat dinner with Mr. and Mrs. Maggot. And that would be 3 of the hobbits, not 4, because they haven't met Merry by that point, actually. So it's just Pippin, Sam, and Frodo in the book. And they have dinner. There's at least 5 kids, 3 girls, three daughters, and 2 of his sons, it says. So it's implied that there's more. So he's got a large family, so I'm down with that. But mini rant, here is what Farmer Maggot actually says in the books. It's awesome because they meet Farmer Maggot and Frodo, they being Frodo, Sam, and Pippin. And Farmer Maggot conveys to them what happened when the Nazgul came looking for Frodo, although he didn't realize it was Frodo because, of course, the Nazgul just say Baggins that they're looking for.
And he didn't realize they were Nazgul either, right? He doesn't have any idea what they are.
But I would like to point out something when you listen to this rendition of what Farmer Maggot actually replies. Gondorian soldiers cower there. It's described, in the presence of the Nazgul at Osgiliath. They're more powerful then, but there's the Black Breath. Pippin is knocked out basically, and reduced to a puddle in Breetown when he gets too close to a Nazgul. The Nazgul have this effect, even if you don't know that they're Nazgul, where it's the fear and terror takes you, and in their presence, no one can stand upright. No one except elves and Farmer Maggot, apparently. So this is what actually happens. Farmer Maggot says, he first describes the Nazgul and how he couldn't see his face and it was very odd. And he was tall, dark, cloaked, sitting stiffly on a horse, and he's right up in his face. The Nazgul leans in. And then after asking Farmer Maggot if he's seen Baggins, Farmer Maggot says, be off, I said. There are no Bagginses here. You're in the wrong part of the Shire. You had better go back west to Hobbiton, but you can go by the road this time. In other words, he's kicking him off his land. Baggins has left, he answered in a whisper. He is coming. He is not far away. I wish to find him. If he passes, will you tell me? I will come back with gold, says the Nazgul. No, you won't, I said. You'll go back where you belong double quick. I'll give you 1 minute before I call my dogs. And then the Nazgul hisses at him, tries to run him over. Farmer Maggot jumps out of the way, and then he calls his dogs after him, but the Nazgul has rode off. So here we have a hobbit that is not only not reduced to a puddle in the presence of a Nazgul, but he is, even when the Nazgul is angry with him, but he's actually aggressive and protective and drives the Nazgul off of his land. Obviously the Nazgul wanted to leave as well, but he stands up to him. This is like the Chad of the Shire. This is Farmer Maggot. And then when he figures out, not only is he brave, but he figures out from a few quick comments with Frodo that Frodo does in fact know about these writers, or at least something, but he's not going to tell. So Farmer Maggot says, well, let's go have dinner. So they go and have dinner with this Farmer Maggot's family. He feeds them well. Mrs. Maggot gives them a great meal. She sends them off with a basket of mushrooms, which is every hobbit's favorite. And then Farmer Maggot drives them to Buckleberry Ferry. In the movie, we see them like running what looks like 20 yards from the road to
right.
the Buckleberry Ferry.
Right.
But in the books, of course, it's a huge distance. And for this last leg of it, Farmer Maggot drives them very slowly in his cart on the road, ready to face the Nazgul at night again, if need be, so that he can get the 3 hobbits over to Buckland, or at least to the ferry to Buckland.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, awesome character. He's the core of family is what Tolkien's books are just rife with. We see this is the very end of Tolkien's book is the return of Sam to his family, the end of the Lord of the Rings. Family was at the heart of what was worth fighting for especially for the hobbits. And we see this guy, Farmer Maggot is the Chad of the Shire, in my opinion. There's nobody else, no other hobbit that stands up to a Nazgul. And he does. So there you go.
I'd never made the connection that that he stands up to the Nazgul while the other hobbits they just fall down and fall unconscious at the very proximity of them. And he's like,
yeah, they cower. Or on Weathertop,
right.
they cower in fear, and they have Aragorn with them too, and they cower in fear. And Frodo does, get desperate and take a single swing at the Witch King, but that's it.
Yeah.
But Farmer Maggot actually stands up to them and drives them off, calls his dogs. And not that they're going to do much because the dogs are kind of scared of the Nazgul. But Maggot isn't. So anyway,
Yeah.
there we
Yeah.
go.
And let's not forget that we call him Michael, you came up with the Godfather of the Shire, because he's the one that strikes fear into the hobbits themselves too, like Frodo,
Right.
who stole mushrooms when he was young and didn't really want to go see Farmer Maggot, even now when he's old enough and 50 years old essentially, and be able to like stand up to him, but he's still afraid of him. So there's
Right. He's worthy of fear. He's worthy of healthy respect and fear. And I love what you said after that too. When I brought up the title, especially because he's a farmer, right? So he's got livestock. So he's the hobbit that might leave a pony's head in your bed if you're not good.
Yeah,
So
right.
this guy is just awesome. We love Farmer Maggot.
Yeah,
and sadly, his 3 seconds of his 3-second facsimile in Peter Jackson's film, highly underwhelming.
Yeah, this chapter exemplifies to me why I felt so literally shorted by what Jackson did in the films.
Is that
where
a Hobbit joke?
Yeah, where they spend 40 seconds evading the Nazgul to get to Bree, and that's the entire distance. It's like they have one night between Hobbiton and Bree meeting, sleeping right before they see the elves, and that's it. Like, I guess you could say there's more, but it doesn't come across as more. And so I hate how short it is. And there's so much that happens here, and the build up. I always think of this now in terms of like if you were to spend a lot more time doing this here, because that's what we're thinking about. It doesn't make for a good cinema or a good TV show.
Right.
The buildup of we miss the other Nazgul encounters that are creepy and frightening and horror-like almost, with it snuffling on the ground, smelling them. And even when they, I guess it's in the next chapter. Is it in the next chapter? Yeah, I think so. Where they turn around over the ferry and they see a form low to the ground, snuffling still there.
Yep.
So this nameless, fearful shadow is still following them, and we get none of that in the films, and I hate that. And we get the ho 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 to the bottle I go to heal my heart and drown my woe song. They just repurposed it earlier in the film from here. And let's not forget, Pippin is with Sam and Frodo the entire time here. They're like, he leaves Hobbiton with Sam and Frodo. So having him here, I don't know, that you miss out the relationship that they have together. That's important and strong too, and the friendship that they have, which is, I think, in the next change we have, Cutting Crickhollow, you see even more of that and how close they really are.
Exactly.
And so all that establishment is just gone.
And we should say one more thing. From the films, there is a second shot of Farmer Maggot, although clearly it's not the same person as we saw in that first shot, which is we see the top of his scythe and hear his dogs as they as he chases the hobbits out of the field. Because of course in the movies, Frodo and Sam literally get run into by Merry and Pippin in the field. And Farmer Maggot's field. So there's that reference as well. In either case, they splintered Farmer Maggot into two irritating characters or lack of characters. And I think they did the Godfather of the Shire dirty. That's my part. That's my line, and I'm sticking to it.
Definitely should have been in the extended editions, but wasn't. Would have been a great.
That would have been an awesome extended edition scene.
Great scene. And we're going to talk about who should have played Farmer Maggot. I think there are a couple of great choices.
Okay.
Remember, they had to be alive in the year 2000 when it was filmed, or 1999 when it was filmed, and so I think I have a couple that aren't alive anymore, but I thought would have made great Farmer Maggots. All right, well then let's.
That's my one choice too. Now I'm curious. We're not going to say, but
no, we won't say.
Jonathan and I didn't share notes before this,
not at all.
So I have one, and he is also passed away, but he was definitely alive in 2000.
All right, okay. Well, let's get into our questions. First of which, is it lore friendly? Is it lore friendly to cut out this entire chapter, this part of the journey, the relationship establishment of the scariness of the Nazgul, Farmer Maggot in particular? Is it lore friendly? Michael, what do you think?
So when it comes to these kind of changes, I need to say first and foremost, we are not judging it on the fact that they removed it. Whenever we judge removal changes, we're not judging on the fact that they removed it if possible. So in this case, they have hints of Farmer Maggot, namely the two that we mentioned. So the question is there portrayal of Farmer Maggot? This is my question I'm answering. Is there portrayal of Farmer Maggot in the two instances, namely the bobbing scythe with the dogs is one. We didn't show that one. But then the one that we did show where the confrontation, the timid and cowering hobbit confronted by the Nazgul, and in that case, it is not lore friendly because it is the opposite of Farmer Maggot's character. So no for me.
Yeah, it's a no for me too. It's not a hard no, like say last week's change in the Wizard's Duel for me.
Yep, it's not a hell no. But
Yeah, it's by removing Farmer Maggot, you're actually removing some of the seeds of the strength of hobbits that you start seeing even more clearly.
Exactly. That's a great point. That's a great
that you
point.
don't see in the films. And I think having that in there makes you want to root for the hobbits even a little bit more to show like, no, they've got strength. There's something there. They're little, they're small, they're farmers, but they're going to stick their dogs on you if they don't like you. They don't care about gold either, right? You can keep your gold.
That's the great thing.
My dogs are.
Yeah.
All right. So no, it is not more friendly. All right. Next question. Does the change make for better cinema? Well, it's a no for me because again, I think you're losing so much of that development and such a great character, even though he's a small character. It's always those tertiary characters, I think, that make the film so much better. I would have rather they would have added a little bit more Maggot into the films than dropped him completely.
Right.
A little less good.
Yep. No, I agree. And I think that it does not make for better cinema. I know what they're trying to do. They were trying to give the impression that the Nazgul, they were showing like the Maggot scene and they were twisting it to make the Hobbits scared of the Nazgul because they wanted us to show how scary they wanted to show us how scary the Nazgul were. So that was their intent, but there's so many other better ways of doing it. I found that passage you were referring to, and this is after they cross over Buckleberry Ferry, and they look back. Look back, Mr. Frodo. Do you see anything? And this is Sam. He said, on the far stage under the distant lamps, they could just make out a figure. It looked like a dark black bundle left behind. This is on the ferry, the actual wood of the ferry. But as they looked, it seemed to move and sway this way and that, as if searching the ground. It then crawled or went crouching back into the gloom beyond the lamps. Mm-hmm. Like that's great horror. It's just like the whole image of this shapeless black mass, too low to the ground to be a standing man, and just sort of swaying and trying to find their scent. It sounds like, or it feels like. So anyway, there's lots of ways you can get scared of the Nazgul without ruining Farmer Maggot. So no is my answer too.
Yeah. Yep. They were relegated to Peter Jackson's wife's Fran Walsh, is that? Yeah.
Fran Walsh,
her scream. She's the one who did the scream for the Nazgul.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were trying to find a sound, and it was her going, or whatever she did. Yeah.
We apologize.
Sorry,
Jonathan just did the opposite of ASMR. So hopefully you have another podcast to tune into.
Yeah, we'll be sending you Q-tips along with this podcast in order to get that out of yours. All right, last question. How much do you like the change, Michael?
It's not the worst of all the changes. So, but it is not. I do not like. It's moderately don't like because Farmer Maggot is ultimately not a pivotal character of the books, but he is a great example of Hobbit courage and gives us a hint at why Frodo can bear up under the ring for so long because of the stuff hobbits are made of. So I like what you said about that, and I'm gonna land on like a 2.3 is my. That's where I land on the negative scale.
2.3. Okay. Well, this was the point in the film where I was disappointed because it came after the Wizard's Duel. And so
it was all downhill from there, huh?
It was all downhill from there. I'm going to go with an even 2.
Wow, you liked it less than mine.
You know why? Because I feel like removing so much and compressing that into the Nazgul chase into just 40 seconds long lost a lot. Not even so much the Farmer Maggot. I feel like you lost a lot of development, and I understand there's a time constraint, but right now I don't care about time constraints. I care about how good the film could have been. Or in this case, if you're making a better movie or a better, longer television show, imagine like this scene would have been like the whole series with Farmer Maggot would have made one great episode. You could have started with Farmer Maggot and how he talks to the Nazgul, and like you don't have to make it a flashback like that, but you get this entire great scene of Farmer Maggot.
And then the dinner with the Maggot family and all their conversation then, and then finishing up. You know, what's funny is that I just realized the opposite is true of the character they're giving us for Farmer Maggot with the bouncing scythe and the dogs. Frodo is scared of Farmer Maggot because he remembers being a small child and stealing mushrooms and getting the dogs called at him.
Mhm.
and even beaten by Farmer Maggot. Apparently, got cuffed
That's
once or
right.
twice. But it's the opposite, because Farmer Maggot not only remembers him but sends him away with a basket of mushrooms. So it's the Farmer Maggot isn't, the get off my lawn, get out of
Yeah.
my field Hobbit. He's the opposite. And so I'm revising down to a 2.2, just a slight
Okay.
revision down with.
Will do.
All right.
All right. Let's get into the next one, guys. This is Cutting Crickhollow. Yeah, that was pretty short, because there's literally no Crickhollow in the entire movie. So I had to. This is where the whole, like, them leaving the ferry is where they end up. They go to Crickhollow from the ferry.
Right. So what you didn't see was everything after that. What you saw in the movie was them entering Breetown after this.
Right.
And what instead you missed out on was like dozens of miles of Hobbit countryside, Buckland, the Old Forest. I mean, this is the six chapters that we're talking about, that we talked about earlier, that they cut in one of our previous changes. This is one of those pieces. So we're missing Crickhollow. And what happens at Crickhollow, just to give a brief, is they meet the little-known fifth wheel of the Hobbit party. So everyone is familiar with the four Hobbits: Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. But it turns out there is a fifth Hobbit that was going to join them, and because of the events at Crickhollow, he does not. But the little-known and nowhere appreciated body positive Bolger. I mean, Fatty Bolger. Sorry, I was slipping into 21st century.
You're just being careful. You're just being aware. You're being very awake. Right. What's another term for awake? Okay, yeah. Go on. Whoa, that's one.
So
body
anyway,
positive Bolger.
So there is a Bolger.
This makes me think, actually, if someone were to come in like they did with was it Roald Dahl's books? They were starting to change, some of the controversial parts of him, like calling people fat. This here, Tolkien would come in and what they call him, Freddie. I mean, his name is Fredegar, but Freddie, they just call him Freddie. Forget Fatty. But how else can you describe a person so quickly and so succinctly than just giving him a nickname, Fatty?
Exactly. He did much better than Bomber. Bomber was the fat dwarf.
That's right.
Fatty Bolger is the fat Hobbit.
And though we don't know yet, he's a pretty heroic Hobbit too.
Yes.
For what he does, we find out later.
We do find out later that he in fact withstands 5 Nazgul outside his door. Now they aren't in his face hissing at him, but he does hold the fort at Crickhollow, the house at Crickhollow. So the 4 hobbits arrive at the house in Crickhollow. This is the house that Frodo had pretended he was going to retire to, so that all the hobbits, that was the story they've been telling all the hobbits, that he was retiring into Buckland. And this was the house at Crickhollow. And now he, of course, planned to move on by himself and Sam. But of course, we find out at Crickhollow that the other hobbits, Pippin and Merry, have already figured out that he's planning to leave them, and they're not going to let him. They're going to leave with him. And initially, Fredegar, aka Body Positive Bolger, also is going to go with them. But first, they have a night of eating, singing, washing, and eating some more mushrooms. In fact, so they bring up Maggot again, Farmer Maggot again, and this is where Tolkien takes a quick aside and says, and this is, Fatty, they had supper in the kitchen on a table near the fire. I suppose you 3 won't want mushrooms again, said Fredegar, without much hope. Yes, we shall, cried Pippin. They're mine, said Frodo, given to me by Mrs. Maggot, a queen among farmers' wives. Take your greedy hands away and I'll serve them. So, and Tolkien then says, hobbits have a passion for mushrooms, surpassing even the greediest likings of the big people. A fact explains young Frodo's long expeditions to the renowned fields of the Marish and the wrath of the injured Maggot. So anyway, they feast on more mushrooms than they can eat, and then they proceed to go to bed, and they leave. They end up leaving in the middle of the night, leaving Fatty Bolger behind to hold down the fort, while the other 4 move on into the Old Forest, escape into the Old Forest. So that's the summary of what we all missed out on with Crickhollow.
And within that, the two things I thought that were important in here is one, even bathing gets a song. Right?
It does.
Even Tolkien was like, no, we're going to take a bath. We're going to sing about the bath.
Everything gets a song. There is nary a chapter that goes by without a song in the Lord of the Rings.
And the other is that, again, it's the establishment of how well the other hobbits know Frodo. They're not just pranksters with fireworks and eating an apple. They figured out that one, Bilbo has the ring because I think it's is it Merry who says he saw Bilbo disappear? Down like when he was he was trying to hide from the Sackville Bagginsons, and Merry sees Bilbo disappear, and so he knows he's got something. So he knew about the ring at some point. And they also knew that like Frodo was following in his footsteps. Frodo was going where Bilbo was going. Essentially, they knew he was leaving, and so he thought he was being sly and going behind her back. They didn't really know what was happening. They're like, no, we know the whole thing the whole time. And that relationship is established by they do it in a friendly way. They're there caring for him the whole time, and so by missing out on all the build up into that, you miss out on so much character development. Exactly right.
You see the friendship of the hobbits and their desire to make they poke fun at each other, and it's a great adds the richness to Hobbit culture that you just don't have the time for in a movie. I don't fault Jackson for that part. Like there's a lot of things that you couldn't put into a movie like this. Yeah. So anyway,
in addition to the bath song, we also get Tolkien wanted to put a little bit of the cosmology, the history of Middle Earth into this here by having Frodo's dream about the White Tower the end of this episode, where I'll read it to you. When at last he got to bed, Frodo could not sleep for some time. His legs ached. He was glad that he was riding in the morning. Eventually, he fell into a vague dream in which he seemed to be looking out of a high window over a dark sea of tangled trees. Down below, among the roots, there was the sound of creatures crawling and snuffling. He felt sure they would smell him out sooner or later. Kind of a hint towards, it feels a little bit like the roots and everything like that is Old Man Willow, but also the Nazgul sniffling and stuff. Then he heard a noise in the distance. At first, he thought it was a great wind coming over the leaves of the forest. Then he knew that it was not leaves, but the sound of the sea far off, a sound he had never heard in waking life. It's interesting. He knew what the sea sounded like, even though he'd never been there. It goes back to your point, is like there's something about the sea in Tolkien. It's the music of the last vestige of the music of the Einar. It's what the echoes of the music are still in the sea.
Exactly.
Yeah. Though it had often troubled his dreams, suddenly he found he was out in the open. There were no trees after all. He was on a dark heath, and there was a strange salt smell in the air. Yeah, dreams with smells are very, very like the potent dreams. Looking up, he saw before him a tall white tower standing alone on a high ridge. A great desire came over him to climb the tower and see the sea. He started to struggle up the ridge towards the tower, and suddenly a light came in the sky, and there was a noise of thunder. And then he woke up. I wasn't sure. Reading this again, I'm like, okay, those towers are the towers built over on the west end. Like, okay, so here it is. It's the Tower Hills were a range of hills at the west end of Eriador. They lay east of Mithlond, the Grey Havens of Lindon, and west of the Far Downs of Old on the border of the Shire. High up on the Tower Hill stood three tall elven towers, the White Towers, the highest of which was called Elasterion, which held a palantir before Círdan removed it to the White Ship. And so even here, like just this little hint, there's like, okay, it's like the little iceberg, right? You see the very tip of what, the White Towers there on the borders of the Shire, and like, boom, no, there's all this entire history. We're getting to Gil-galad and Elendil and the Palantir and Círdan, right? It's all right there underneath. And I love how Tolkien weaves that in, and that depth is there in the books, but not the films.
Nice. Yeah,
okay.
I've forgotten about that dream. That's a good reference.
All right. So let's get into our three questions. Is it lore friendly? Is it lore friendly? If you have an answer, go ahead. I'm still.
Well, what I was going to say was I feel like I need a stock answer for these ones where they simply remove a piece. So there's no way for me, unlike Farmer Maggot, who had a couple representations, they just cut it out completely. They just doesn't exist. So is it lore friendly? I mean, obviously not to remove a piece of a book, but is it lore unfriendly?
It's a hard one. Okay, if it's a 49, 51, where do you on that scale of 1 to 100? Where do you land on that very, very small. That's hard, right? Because I
It's an
want it in
absence.
there.
It's an absence. So an absence can't be friendly or unfriendly in one sense. It just has no existence. There's nothing there. So it's the fact that they just cut a piece out. Now the question is, did they cut a piece out that was key to the story itself or the characters? This is a hard one.
So does it change the characters?
No, I have to say it. I don't think it does. Is it lore friendly? It's not unfriendly. It's lore neutral. I don't know if I can. Can I give a NA?
I think a yes is it. I think if it doesn't change a whole lot,
Okay.
then I think you have to give it a yes. And I'm gonna, because even the last one, you could almost say it's lore friendly by removing Maggot, almost. But I think he's got such a great character, and I think it develops the Hobbit characters more than this episode does.
Yeah.
Or this chapter. What this chapter does. What is it called? A Conspiracy Unmasked. It serves to bring all the hobbits together at this point and to establish their relationship. And in the films, Jackson does that really earlier when they knock into each other and they have some of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and he introduces them early in there. So I'm going to say, because I said no on the last one of the Godfather of the Shire, I'm going to say yes on this one.
It's really boring that you and I agree so much on the lore friendliness side of things.
I'm sorry. It's, you one more. You agree? There's more lore friendliness on your side by about 3%.
Less than 3%, yeah, or a little more.
Man, a little more. All right. Let's get to the next question. These are hard. I'm sure we'll get into more lore unfriendliness in the future as we go through all these. Does the change make for better cinema? You know, I have a hard time when you cut out some great characters like Body Positive Bolger and some of the lore that's in there with the dream. I don't think it makes for better cinema because I think there's so much good stuff in the Lord of the Rings. I think it could have been another whole film, like just the entire from here to Rivendell could have been a whole film, and Rivendell to Frodo heading over into Mordor alone with Sam could have been a whole film by itself. So does the change make for better cinema? No, I don't think the change makes for better cinema.
Nah, it doesn't make for better cinema. Doesn't make
it lessens the characters in my effect. And I love you miss out. They added, some hobbitiness to it, but you miss out on the depth of the hobbits by not having these longer scenes just with other hobbits other than Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. You get Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, and Farmer Maggot, and all his friends and his kids and his wife, and you get Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, and Fatty. And there's more to it, and they have more friends outside of it. Like Fatty's a good friend of theirs. He was there waiting for them and preparing things too. So anyway, all right, I digress. I can keep going.
Exactly, I agree.
All right, how much do you like the change? I'll go with this one. I don't think the change is as egregious as the last time. If 3 is right in the middle, I can never say that I'm totally 100% okay with it. So I'm going to go with a 2.6. 2.6 on this one.
All right. Yeah, this is how much do I like the change cutting out? It's very close to neutral to me from a cinematic perspective, because I would have liked to have had it there, but still a little. It's only barely below because it isn't egregious, and Fatty Bolger doesn't appear ever again, and he does appear a little bit, but we revisit what happens to him in the Nazgul briefly, but besides the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, he doesn't appear. Not a pivotal character. So I'm going to go 2.8.
I'm glad to know you're always a little bit higher than me, and you're a little less.
I live up to expectations, sir.
A little more.
That's what I strive to do. I was almost going to give it a 3.0. Actually, you dragged me down.
Should be confident in your dislike or your like.
Usually, I don't have a problem with confidence. In this case, it's not.
But there's an argument to be made. It's always sort of like people are going to feel bad. Am I ruining the films for people by saying how bad these changes are? So anyway,
I am glad that you have the heart of the people in mind, because I don't give a flying.
You could care less about everybody else.
I really don't. And so
well. My facts don't rule my feelings. So my feeling of this might be that, but I know in my heart, I don't feel in my heart, I know in my heart that I'm making the right decision to like these even less than you.
Well, so here's why I almost gave it a 3.0, because this is the honest truth. I have a sneaking suspicion if I was making Lord of the Rings in 3 movies, and that's the premise that I start with. Like, if you're going to make Lord of the Rings in 3 movies, I have to cut things. I have a sneaking suspicion I would cut Crickhollow. I wouldn't cut Farmer Maggot, but I have a sneaking suspicion I would cut Crickhollow. I wouldn't cut Old Forest. I would do a shortened version of the Old Forest, probably, but I would not cut it. And if I had to make that choice, and so I suspect that Jackson probably made a choice that I would have made.
Yeah, I agree. Although if you do what they're doing now, which is you have these, they're making what Fallout is a 8-episode, 8-hour journey through a video game. They could do the same thing now with this. And
that's the base line level decision. So I agree with you. What Lord of the Rings should have been is a 10-episode or a 3-season. Really, it should have been 3 seasons with
agreed
8 to 10 episodes each book. And then they could have put in basically everything. Yeah. And so with 30 hours, you can put in everything, I think. And so if that's the decision you're making, then I'm judging this against something it's not. I should be judging these against what they are, which is their movies. So
I agree. I'm trying.
Cinema experiences.
I'm trying. All right. 2 more down, another 200 to go.
A mere 200.
All right, let's jump into our extended podcast, which again, you've heard it all, guys. Go to thewarning.com/member to become a member, and you get to hear us talk about who should have been Farmer Maggot, who should have been body positive Bolger, because we can't have. We'll see how we have to cast for that, and then we'll also ask a couple questions about the attack on the Nazgul attack on Fatty Bolger and Crickhollow and the Rousing Buckland. What would that have been like? AJ, thank you for that question, because what would that have been like in the films if they would have done that? So we'll talk about that and a couple other questions too, all in our extended podcast. If you go to theonering.com/member to become a member, or to go to theonering.com/Patreon to become a Patreon. We'll see you over on the other side of this little break.
Bye-bye, freeloaders.